You're listening to the Therapist to Millions podcast, where we get under the skin and into the brains of the world's leading therapists with Dr. Susan Spicer and myself, Damien Mark Smith, as we delve into the world of all kinds of effective therapies with fascinating and challenging cases, plus marketing tips and what's really working in mental health right now.
Welcome to the Therapist to Millions podcast. We have a very, very special guest with us today. Gretchen Blackmore is a psychotherapist in private practice in New York City. After receiving her MSW from New York University, she worked for 5 years providing psychotherapy to crime victims at the New York City District Attorney's Office, Special Victims Unit. In addition to her private practice, she currently teaches undergraduate courses in the field of social work at NYU. So Gretchen, welcome to Therapist to Millions. And I am Dr. Susan Spicer, and this is Damien Mark Smith. And this is our opportunity to showcase a great collection of therapists and coaches around the globe. So welcome.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Gretchen, what type of therapy or therapies do you practice?
So primarily, I have come to describe myself as a relational therapist. I have studied with Terry Real through the Relational Life Therapy Institute. And the idea, through Terry Real's work, what I learned is different frameworks to use in healing trauma through relationship. And I also work a lot with the body. So I am not trained specifically as a somatic psychotherapist, but I do believe that the body is essential in our healing. So I work with clients through a practice called authentic movement, which is a practice in which a mover moves in the center of a room, and there's a witness who witnesses this movement, and the idea is contacting the nervous system, or getting in touch with the nervous system and helping people, I guess, communicate with the nervous system and express the nervous system in new ways, creating new neurological patterns in the body. So my belief is that as people learn to enter the body and feel their emotions through the body, that healing begins to happen, because most of the time we live in our anxiety, which is from, the neck up, it's all in the head. And so it's essential to learn how I find that most of my clients come in and they're not even aware that they have an emotional experience in the body. And so without that, I really find it's impossible for clients to heal. So between the framework of relational living, relating to the self and learning about the internal world, relating to our partners and our communities and our friends and our families in a healed and recovered way, between that and healing within the body, I find that people really recover very quickly from trauma.
That's so powerful. There's a whole movement, I think, in our profession today about how the body stores trauma. And I think Bessel van der Kolk has really pioneered that movement. But somatic therapies have always been so interesting to me. And I've loved hearing over the years you talk about authentic movement, because that's something a lot of therapists don't know about. And as you know, I practice EMDR, which is a lot of how the body stores trauma as well. So when you talk about somatic therapies and authentic movement, I just think it's such a powerful way to help our clients that many people aren't aware of.
Absolutely. And I think Bessel van der Kolk actually talks about authentic movement. It was either him or this other psychiatrist, but talked about authentic movement as being one of those direct ways to heal the nervous system.
Exactly.
And it's also a container that allows people to really express themselves, because there's no music with the movement. And so sometimes it becomes very esoteric. Like where people feel that they're entering alternate states of consciousness in this practice. And really, people have talked about it as feeling almost shamanic in its healing form.
Wow. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It's so powerful, right? And he does the vagus nerve work as well. I wonder, is that related to authentic movement, the vagus nerve theory or
Well,
polyvagal theory, they call it?
I think that authentic movement is one of those things where you learn to feel the desire and the calling to move in a particular way. So the deeper you go in that practice, I think you could, it's not, I haven't heard it talked about as dealing with the polyvagal nerve, but I don't know. I imagine the body would call you to do that work with itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. That's fascinating. So what specific life experiences have shaped your work as a therapist?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely a wounded healer.
Right. As most of us are, correct?
Yes, right. So I grew up, first divorce between my mother and my birth father. Later, my mom, married, and there was, this is the first time me talking about this in public, but, there was a lot of addiction and alcoholism in that family. And so, and I was pretty much an only child at this point. I mean, my brother had gone off to college, and so I spent, growing up pretty much on my own. And when I wasn't on my own, it was usually I was in a bar, or I was, experiencing violence in the home. There really wasn't any protection for me growing up. And so I feel really, really called in my work to work with people who, and it doesn't even have to be that extreme. I think there's sort of like hidden trauma that's just culturally accepted.
Right.
But that really called me to help people heal from childhood trauma or childhood neglect, or simply not having their needs met emotionally as children.
Absolutely. Yes. Very, very powerful life experiences.
Right. And so I guess in terms of, later in life, I had a long healing journey of my own because of that trauma. I found myself abusing alcohol, really struggling to get my feet on the ground financially, or in terms of like understanding what I was doing with my career, having the necessary skills to sort of live my life. And, I started in the recovery of Al-Anon and later AA, and, have lived a very sober life. And in that sobriety have been able to really heal through therapy and my own other exploration of the healing arts.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Now you're passing that gift on to others. That's amazing. Using hypotheticals and no identifying factors, if you please.
Yes.
What's an example of an amazing success story in your practice?
I think there's this one theme that all of my clients, and including myself, have to learn, which is my feelings are not going to kill me.
Right.
I see that again and again and again with clients, just learning to tolerate, learning to relate to their own inner world, and also balancing that out, because the pain can be so heavy, right?
Yes.
But there's also the practice of relating to the self, like getting curious. Sometimes people have no idea what they like anymore.
Right.
And so encouraging clients to get curious about what calls you, what do you desire, what are you interested in, what feels good to your body, and letting them sort of indulge in the exploration of self in a way that feels like it kind of balances out this like heavy, indulgence into the pain, right?
Right. The pain body, as Gretchen would say. Yeah,
right. Because that's what everybody runs from. And that struggle causes the anxiousness and the dissociation, right?
Absolutely.
And so helping people really, come back to center and be able to take care of their mind, body, spirit, and relationships, all of it.
Right. That's amazing. Yeah. So what has been your biggest challenge or failure, and what did you learn from it?
Two things come to mind. One is, in the beginning, I focused a lot on positive psychology. Yeah. And I remember, and I still think positive psychology has its place.
Yeah.
But I actually recently took my website down because I felt like it misrepresented my work.
Remember you said that, right?
That, I sat down with this person who has now become a mentor of mine, a therapist, a supervisor, whatever we want to call her. And, she's like, you're going to have to process some of these feelings. And I was like, why? So like early, in the beginning of my work, I was really so dissociated myself. And so I think I did, and I think this happens a lot in our field, that people start off young and they're ready to go and
idealistic and work, right?
Yes. Like, let's just overcome this with positivity. And so I think I did clients a disservice in that way. I also think that I was challenged by some, I believe that everyone has narcissistic tendencies, and with some people, it's more than others. And I've had some people who, probably are on the narcissistic spectrum somewhere, and I would get caught into the work, really doing themselves a disservice by not challenging them, and kind of keeping them, sensing that, oh, if I challenge that, they're going to leave.
I get it.
And, narcissism is such a burden for people. And I do think most of the time it comes from from trauma. And so I am committed to treatment of narcissists, and I welcome it. But I've learned over time that I need to lovingly and compassionately challenge
exactly
clients.
Right.
So,
yeah. You're helping them more powerfully if you call them out on it and say, hey, how is that really serving you? And did you notice? Did you notice what you did there? Right. I love it. Right. And we all know that good narcissists, really strong narcissists, can sit down and really charm a therapist often. Absolutely. So, I commend you then for saying, I get that. I'm not going to fall into that trap. I'm going to help you by giving you a challenge here. Right.
Well, and I have to say that I was only able to do that by working with my mentor, because, challenging the places in me that were fearful of having my own no, or knowing what I know as a person, and being able to present that even in the face of a narcissistic sort of pushback, So I think it's so important for us to all be doing our own work.
Now, if different from above, what has been your most fascinating, interesting, or unusual case, and why?
Oh, I was trying to think of this. I am learning that I don't really have the most fascinating case. I think I've become really interested in working with survivors of cults. It's not my specialty, but it seems to be that these clients seem to come my way, and I find the work really interesting. But I'm more fascinated by the practice of psychotherapy as a spiritual practice.
Yes.
The whole field, the deeper and deeper I go into this field, the more I feel the divinity or the sacredness of this work. And so I think I'm kind of just obsessed with psychotherapy.
Right. Mm-hmm. Love it. I love it. Right. And what has been your most successful marketing technique so far that you have used to grow your practice?
Well, I really don't have one. I am on Psychology Today. As I've said, I've taken down my website, and I have had a few book clubs with other psychotherapists, and I get clients that way. And then I really get clients word of mouth. So I haven't really needed it to grow my practice, really. I mean, I think I could use it now because I'm trying to think about doing some other things. And, I'd like to have maybe more of a waiting list, but I've gotten by without it. so
Right,
far.
right. Well, there are many, many ways you can use webinars and online courses and ebooks and
Right.
audios to grow your practice. There's so many ways that we can do that, right? And I think many, many therapists are in that same exact boat. They love their work, but they don't necessarily know what kind of marketing technique to use, what's the most effective to use and how. So yeah, that's what inspired us to create Therapist to Millions, because sky's the limit.
Yeah, because there's so many things we can do to reach people, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
and
Right.
a
Right.
really good way of reaching more people. I don't know if you've considered this, but a really good way of reaching a lot of people potentially is to write a book. So have you thought about writing a book? Have you written a book? And if so, is it released? And if you are thinking about writing one, what's it going to be called?
Yes. I am in a book writing course right now.
Ooh.
And I'm writing a creative memoir about my own trauma and healing journey.
Wow.
And I don't know what the title will be yet. Some people are telling me they really like this word that I used in one of my pieces, but Surrenderland is a possibility. It's
Ooh,
already
I like that.
So we'll see.
Right.
I like that. That's good.
I love it. Oh, that's really powerful. So on the subject of books, what is the best therapy book you've ever read and why?
Okay. So I think there's two authors. I really love Alice Miller and Pia Mellody because they really speak to the work that the recovery work that I do. And, but I would say that the book For Your Own Good, it's Hidden Cruelty in Child Rearing. And she talks a lot about, and the roots of violence. And she talks about the, like I was kind of saying before, that trauma doesn't even have to be something that is severe, that we would consider severe, that it can just be even an accepted form of child rearing that really disconnects a child from their own knowing, their own emotional state. You know, they're not getting their emotional needs met. And she talks actually about how it's really important for our clients to see what happened to them so they can take that, they can separate themselves out from that shame that was sort of pushed on them.
Exactly.
And that you can't heal otherwise. And also that without that kind of healing and without better child rearing, she actually talks about Nazi Germany, how we create dictators, and she goes that far with it. But she's also the author of a bestseller book. I think it's Whole Brain Child, but
I've heard. Right. Wow. Really interesting.
We'll include the links to both of those in the in the show notes. Now, still on the subject of books, what's your favorite non-therapy book and why? It can be anything.
I love the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and it's all about the creative process. She wrote Eat, Pray, Love.
Right. Okay.
She wrote, it's all about sort of the magic of creativity and how to stay connected to the creative process. And I find creativity so healing.
Right.
And A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, I love A New Earth. Yes. And The Power of Now. All of Eckhart Tolle's books are so powerful. In many ways, they can be considered therapy books in a way.
I know.
They're teaching us about life. Right.
That mindfulness to the body and the mind. Right. So important.
Right. He's so powerful. Elizabeth Gilbert has a fabulous TED Talk too that she did after Eat, Pray, Love. Yeah. But Big Magic, I'll have to look that up. That sounds like a really good one. Yeah. And so what would be your top tip for mental health in the world today?
I think it's really important for ourselves as therapists to be in our own work, to be deepening our own relationship to our inner world so that we can constantly be deepening with our clients.
I agree.
And to not shy away from emotion, right? That to understand that deep pain is not a scary thing. It's actually our place of wisdom. It's our compass.
Right.
It's so important. Like healing is not about getting rid of pain.
Right.
Like to come from that place, I think is really important.
I agree.
Love that.
I think that it's that healing work. It's not teaching the client how to live without the trauma. It's teaching them how to live with it.
Right. And how to begin to understand that our pain is trustworthy.
Right.
And that it guides us where we need to go.
Right.
That everyone has pain. It's what connects us.
Right.
That we can honor it as sacred, really.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have to say, out of all the podcasts we've done, that is my favorite answer to that question we've had so far.
Right. I agree. Totally. Very, very
really
powerful, Gretchen.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And now finally, most importantly,
Mm-hmm.
to win an exclusive Therapist to Millions t-shirt. They're very good, by the way.
They're really awesome.
They're lovely. Which you need to wear out and about everywhere in New York. Tell us a fact that blows our mind, or tell us a joke that's one of a kind.
A Freudian slip is when you say one thing and you mean your mother.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And you mean
that is good. Okay, t-shirt coming to you. Well done.
Love it. Love it. That was awesome. This has been really amazing, Gretchen. I just love your insights, and I love your approach to therapy. And I can tell that doing your own work has really meant a lot to you, and you help clients from a very authentic and real place. And I think that's why you've been so successful in what you do. And I know that your work, and I know your work has evolved. Like you said, even taking down your own website. So many of the therapists listening to this have to listen to that and understand that where we start out as therapists isn't often where we end. And in our own healing journey, we do our best work. The best addiction recovery specialists are those who have recovered from drugs and alcohol. The best trauma therapists are those who have been traumatized and have been through their own healing process. So I think it's so powerful the way that you have used your life experiences to really create a very powerful approach to healing that appears to be so effective in helping people. So I know there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to get a hold of you after this podcast. So can you give us some of your contact details, maybe your website or contact email?
Absolutely. I don't have a website right now. I'm working on that. But I'm in Psychology Today. Do you want me to say my email, or do you want me to just send it to you?
You can say it.
Okay.
Do both.
Well, so my email is gretchencohoon@gmail.com, and I can be found in Psychology Today under Gretchen Cohoon, LCSW.
Fantastic.
Okay,
Gretchen.
perfect.
It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. And I have to say that last answer is, as I say, the best one I've heard out of all the interviews we've done. Very powerful to also think about. It's because there might be people starting to listen to this podcast who are not therapists. So essentially what you've done there is you've talked about the therapist and the patients, which, let's face it, we're all human beings being human.
Yes.
Wonderful. So grateful you came on the show today to share your insights.
Yes. So grateful. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful for you having me. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this week's episode of the Therapist to Millions podcast, may we invite you to check out our free for life Therapist to Millions online membership course for therapists and coaches who want to grow their business without trading more time for dollars. We've created the world's premier digital marketing resource exclusively for therapists, and it's yours for free for life. Just head over to therapisttomillions.com and sign up now.